Hello, hello.
And
We are doing a
now you
walkthrough
learn the
of
true
Ara-Kara.
lesson of the void.
This is on the new patch, is 11.0.5, I believe. And I don't think these are the talents I'm running. It looks like I am. It looks like it didn't swap them over. That's kind of unfortunate. Maybe it did. Yeah, these are the talents we're running. I'll just pause it real quick. Or, I mean, you pause it real quick if you want to see them. I cannot pause it. But other than that, we are just going to do a walkthrough. So usually most groups will either stop here at the end of the bridge or the start of the bridge. And then some groups will go all the way to this spider, so I'll just kind of explain things as we go. First major thing as a healer, there's poison dispels. If you can dispel them as much as you possibly can. And then if you cannot dispel them, you need to be healing the players who are targeted by the poisons, because it does a lot of damage. Other than this, there are trilling attendants, which will do kicks that you need to interrupt. They do web bolts and like a resonating barrage or resonating something or another that needs to be kicked. Then the ones that apply poisons are these crawlers right here, these engorged crawlers. They just will randomly apply the poison to people right here with the venom. And then we have those web bolts you can see on the marked ones, the attendants. Little spiders don't really do anything, they just jump to random players if the tank... I believe it's if the tank isn't in melee range of them, they'll jump to random players.
Your ascension
So they're just tank damage.
is complete.
And other than that, those are like the two important mobs that are happening. Next is like these mini bosses, and we fought one of them on that first initial pull, and I didn't get to really talk about it. They all do the same abilities, except they each have one unique ability. So the shared abilities is that they do a frontal that you have to dodge, which I guess I'll break it down a little more as we're fighting them. So when we pull this next one, I'll talk about it. This is a lot of spiders. I'm not going to be too focused on doing damage or anything, just because we're making a video about talking about how to heal the dungeon, so I'm just going to be focusing kind of on keeping people alive to keep it a clean run. That way we get the chance to do this in one try, rather than me having to run the dungeon multiple times. Here I can't dispel myself because I have the poison, so I'm going to dispel the DH when it comes back up, since mine's going to expire soon, and I press the defensive for mine. That's the other way you can manage the poisons. Now we have the mini-bosses, so they all cast Web Bolt, which will just do random targeted damage, so you want to kick that. Then this one special ability will do this Call of the Brood. It just does an absolute ton of damage to the entire group. And that's specifically this second one that you pull. Then they do this frontal that I talked about, where it's just like a kind of web effect on the ground and you just want to be out of it. And I believe that's it. I think the web, so they do the web bolts and then they do the frontal, and then their third ability is their like unique ability. The first one does an AoE fear that you need to interrupt. So it just has an extra kick. And then the second one that we just killed does that massive AoE unavoidable damage. That's like the most dangerous one by far. And then this one here, its special ability just applies these like little poison pools on the floor. You just want to watch out for. Like spawns as like a little purple swirly. You'll see it here in a second. Hopefully it spawns on me. Yep, there it is on me, so I just move out of the way. If you get hit by the swirly, you take initial damage, and then if you step in this pool, you take constant damage. But the initial hit will like one-shot you depending on the key level, so you do want to be careful of that. And then other than that, he's just doing the same thing. He's just spamming, instead of Web Bolt, he's doing Poison Bolt, which just applies a poison to people. But it's all the same idea. They do a spam cast on random players, they do a frontal, and then they do a special ability. Next up, we have the boss. We need a lot of room in this boss encounter, and we'll kind of explain things as we go. So the first thing, you'll see these eggs that spawn over here on the far side. Those are going to hatch and create little ads that fixate on random players. If they get too close to the boss, then it does a bunch of damage, and they hatch whenever the boss casts this alerting shrill, which just does unavoidable AoE damage to the group, so that's what we're primarily using our like healing cooldowns on and stuff. I would say you want to use your more stationary stuff on that, and then you want to use things that you can use on the move. So for instance, like say I was running Trank, I would use Tranquility during the alerting shrill, and then this, the Gossamer onslaught that he's doing right now, this does also unavoidable group-wide damage, And that's where we'd use more mobile cooldowns. So that's
5,
where I would use things like
4,
Convoke and
3,
things like that.
2,
It definitely depends
1.
more on the healer you're playing. But that's the general idea. So here's the Alerting Shrill. We just keep everyone topped up for that, and this is generally where we use our healing cooldowns. Then the ads are alive, so we hit those. We can use crowd control on them and stuff. And then we have the Gossamer Onslaught coming up shortly. So by the time, hopefully, like, the way that it's supposed to line up is by the times that the ads are dead, like right there, they're dying. Now the Gossamer Onslaught happens, we kind of stand close to the previous stuff on the floor, and then we just move a little bit slowly with the Gossamer Onslaught and drop the stuff on the floor. Because it takes up a large amount of space, especially if you're running around all over the place. So it's something you want to be aware of. Then we have the Alerting Shrill again. I'll just Convoke this one because we're not taking too much damage in this difficulty. And then the other important thing that the boss does is these Voracious bites. It just is a big tank hit, so just make sure the tank is nice and healthy, or use externals on them and stuff like that during that. It'll always overlap with the abilities. Like here he's going to do Gossamer Onslaught, and then do the Voracious Bite on the tank after it's done channeling. And then he'll do the Alerting Shrill, and then another bite, and so on and so forth. Like he always does it right after doing the other abilities.
5, 4,
so now he bites the tank.
3, 2,
Then he does the Alerting
1.
Shrill, then he bites the tank, then he does the Gossamer Onslaught, then he bites the tank, and it just goes back and forth like that. These ones will throw down Vortex, we can apply Sunfire. I meant to hit one of the ones in the middle.
Is complete.
Like, see here, I'm fixated by the ad, so I don't want to run it through the boss. Like, if it were to get close to me, you'd want to kite it kind of around in a circle like this instead of walking it towards the boss. Because if it gets too close to the boss, then the boss eats it, and it will wipe the group, because he gets like a double damage buff for each spider that he kills. We're just running through all this stuff.
5,
Tank's getting a bite,
4,
so I'm going to Iron Bark him.
3, 2,
And now the Alerting Shrill happens, and we should have plenty of time to kill the boss before the ads get over here. So once the boss is low enough, now we're just ignoring it. Ignoring the ads. I can just, like, for instance, if they were to get too close, I could throw down a Vortex or CC them in some way. And that is the first boss. Then next up we have two important mobs here down this row. Goodbye. We're going to have these Bloodstained Assistants. They do a heavy tank hit. It's this Extraction Strike ability that will do a heavy tank hit. Then we have the Web Mages from before. They're pretty much the same as the earlier guys that we were fighting. They just spam cast Web Bolts. And we want to kick those. And then lastly, we have the Hulking Blood Guards. These guys, you want to focus these. You can still AoE and stuff off of them, but they do provide like an aura to all the mobs around them that reduce their damage taken. So you want to get these down as quick as possible. And then other than that, they do a frontal that you just avoid, and then the last thing they do is a slam, and it just does unavoidable group-wide damage, so that's where you'll want to use like healing cooldowns or defensives to basically cover the slams. Because the thing that will kill you in this hallway is slam plus getting like a web bolt at the same time, like overlaps. So generally defensives or damage reduction or that kind of stuff will be a lot more beneficial. And then next up here, it's all the same mobs except for the Sentry Stag Shell. So the Sentries just have low HP. They don't do anything besides just cast, I think it's Larm, or they do some kind of channeled cast where if it finishes, they turn into a Blood Guard. Or I guess they call a Blood Guard. Like they just spawn one. So you definitely want to avoid that. You just crowd control them. They can't be regularly kicked, so you just have to crowd control them in any way.
AoE.
Here, like we're doing a Blood Guard by itself, the slam comes out and I just Wild Growth. And there, he's pulling the next pack. So there you can see the heroic leap on the Stag Shell casting. We just want to make sure that doesn't go through. So there it's like halfway done casting, someone kicked it. Now for this next slam, I'll use Iron Bark on myself. Looks like I used it way too early, but it'll last long enough. Putting hots on everybody for the slam.
AoE.
Doesn't end up going off. Or just helping with these mages. The other thing some of the mages will do is they'll do this Venomous Folly cast. You can interrupt it, and it makes, like, Plater or other add-ons will make it seem really important to interrupt. At the moment, at the time of this, which is the 11.0.5 launch, this ability, the Venomous Nova, is not important at all, or it's right here, the Revolting, maybe it's Revolting Volley or something like that.
Is complete.
The other cast outside of Webbolt that they do, that one is not very important. If you're in a more organized group, you can actually just ignore kicks on that completely and just have the healer heal through it, because it doesn't really do too much compared to the Webbolts, which are hitting you for, like, a lot of your HP, even on lower keys. Here, a Revolting Volley is going to go off. You can see that. It's just a poison that applies to everybody, but I can almost instantly heal it off if I'm ready for it. So if you're in a pug, for one thing, definitely be ready to heal through that. And then if you're in an organized group, you can also kind of know ahead of time if you guys are going to let those go off or not. And just heal through them really quickly. Now we got nothing new until the boss. This web mage just likes to sit here. There are ways to interrupt him to open up this door early, but otherwise he just kind of stands here and doesn't really do anything. Next pack is just a Blood Guard. All these Blood Workers don't do anything. They just hit the tank for random melee damage. You can pretty much ignore them. And then the only thing you want to be careful of here is the Blood Guard will do that frontal, and it's a little more dangerous just because of how close it is here. So same thing, we're just dodging the frontals and healing the slams. And then next up we have the boss. So this boss is actually really important. So this boss will apply this little swarm debuff on people. I think it's called Infested Swarm or something like that. This you want to be very aware of. Yeah, Infestation. It does a ton of damage, and then when it expires on you, it will drop this little pool on the floor. And you can kind of bait the pool. I'll show it again when it targets me.
5,
But
4,
essentially when the pool
3,
drops, after it grows to
1.
its full size, it will move towards the closest player and then just travel in a straight line from where they were standing when it initially targeted them. Than that, during this fight, the boss will target people with a charge ability, and you just want to avoid that. You can use like jumps or movement abilities to get out of the way. It'll always target DPS as far as I'm aware. Here we're healing up the rogue. And he does frontals aimed at the tank, or directly after charging someone, he'll frontal towards
5,
them after they dodge
4,
the charge or get hit
3,
by it.
2, 1.
And here, like here, I'll show you how to bait it. So it's going to drop on the floor, and then I step out of it, and if I stay right here, it's going to go towards the wall. So now it goes towards the wall, and then once it reaches the wall, it picks a new target. So like there, it picks me again. So if I were standing right here, it'd go right through the boss. Oh, okay, healers can get targeted by the charge. I'm going to try to move out of the way in time. Usually just stand near a wall and then just use some kind of movement ability to get out of the way. If you get hit by the charge while you're by a wall, you will get hit twice because he does like the initial knockback from the charge and then hits you again when he runs into the wall, and you'll just die to that at certain key levels. So you do want to try to be avoiding the charge. But our main role as a healer is just heal through these infestations. The only other thing that's worth mentioning for the infestations specifically is they will never target the same player twice in a row, and it actually rotates through your entire group for like a full cycle before it can target the same person twice. So like here it's on the DH, now it can't target the DH again. And if I remember correctly, the rogue was targeted last, so now it targets the DH, or the DK, sorry. Yeah, it'll just continually keep targeting different people every time. And there it targeted the mage, so it can't target the rogue
4,
or DK.
2,
And now I think it's targeted everybody, so now it'll pick randomly again. So there it goes on me. And then again, I can drop it kind of off from the group and then stand out here, and then now it'll go towards me, towards the wall, instead of towards the group. So you can kind of bait where they go, which can help a little bit, especially if they're a little overwhelming. Now we have the end of the dungeon trash. So these Blood Overseers, they just do a Venom Volley that you need to kick every 20 seconds. Then the next important thing they do is spawn these little swirlies on the floor that you just dodge. You'll pretty much die if you get hit by them. But if you don't die, then you get stunned. And then these winged carriers, if these get pulled, they will jump to random players and just do damage. Like there, the rogue is getting hit a bunch by them. So we're dodging stuff, we're interrupting Venom Volley, and then we're watching the random jumps, so we just need to keep everyone nice and healthy because of all the random jumps that will happen. And then the last thing is if you pull any of these reinforced drones, which we do have 2 of them in this pack right now, as far as I know, all that they do is they will spawn these little pools on the floor. If you stand in them, you get rooted, and then they will put like a permanent slow, or like a stacking slow debuff on whoever they're attacking, which will generally, hopefully, be the tank. But if you have, like, if you're a Paladin and can freedom them and stuff, the bad overlap is basically when you have to dodge the stuff on the floor from the Blood Overseers, and then you're also slowed by the drones, like if you have a tank and you can't get out of the way in time. Having some kind of freedom effect or, you know, increasing movement speed, you can use Tiger's Lust as a monk, you could use freedom, and then I'm sure there's some other things that I'm completely forgetting. There's like a Windrush talent that you could take that would work. But going into this next mob, the Nerubian Hauler, he looks very similar to the guys we were fighting before. He does the same slam ability, but this time it stuns, and I think it happens more frequently, and then he doesn't do anything else. That is literally all he does, is just this, it's called Massive Slam. And it'll just do a lot more damage and stun you, so it's just something that you want to make sure everyone in the group is fully topped up for. And if you're pulling other trash with it, like sometimes I've seen this pulled with the bats that fly around, and that is very, very dangerous because people are taking random damage while the slam is happening, and that can hurt a lot. Something to be mindful of. And then that covers all the trash in this room, because all these packs on the sides are just copies of what we were fighting at the very beginning. Same thing here, we have 2 Blood Overseers, so now we're just interrupting Venom Volleys on both of them. And then we're dodging the swirlies that they both will spawn. There they spawn 2 swirlies. Sometimes they'll be like synced up, and sometimes they'll be a little desynced, like you'll dodge the first one and then the next one will spawn. So just keep an eye out for that, it usually depends on how they get pulled. But that's pretty much all they do. They don't really do anything else at all. Okay, and then for the last boss, there is definitely some important things here, and I think a lot of people struggle with this boss, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually really simple. So she's going to basically circulate between 3 abilities, which is going to be Erupting Webs, which is right here. You just dodge the swirlies, just like those mobs. And she's going to do Cultivated Poisons. She puts poison debuffs on everyone, and you get these little effects on you. If I dispel myself or get rid of the poison, it shoots out waves in the directions of those like weird swirlies that are sticking out from you. Or when it times out. So it doesn't matter whether you dispel it or wait until it times out. And then the entire time you take constant damage while you have the poison debuff on you. So as a healer, you're using healing cooldowns for when the poisons are out, the cultivated poisons. And sometimes the abilities will desync. Like here we're getting Erupting Webs, so we dodge. And then we get the poisons at pretty much the same time. And if I want, I can dispel, but I'm just showing what it looks like if you don't dispel anybody. And there, someone got hit by a wave, so you get one shot if you get hit by a wave, like almost no matter the difficulty. That's why it's a little difficult. And then the other important thing that's happening is she will do this ability here, which is Cosmic Singularity. When that happens, these little pools on the floor, you need to stand in one of them. Like here, the mage is super, super far away, so I'm going to try to do some healing to him. You stand in the pool, you get rooted, and then you have to stop this
black blood from channeling on you, you can interrupt it, or you can like shapeshift as a druid, you can freedom, you can also use crowd control, like I could use in-cap roar, all those kinds of things. So any kind of crowd control will stop them from channeling on you, but that's what keeps you rooted. So you don't want to break it until you're ready to be unrooted from the pull-in, because the pull-in will kill you if you unroot yourself too early. Even if you do it at like the very, very end of the pull-in, because she'll yank you all the way into her at the very end of the cast. Here we're just dispelling myself. I should probably be dispelling other people. And then the other thing you want to be mindful of when the poisons go off, I'll mention it. So we're going to go here in this pool, and we just stand here. And then once it ends, once the cosmic singularity ends, we can in-cap roar, break out of that. And now we're getting ready for the poisons to overlap with the webs again. Going through this. So the big thing here is if you were walking in the direction of where your poison's going to fly out, so like if I was walking this way, as the poison expires, it will hit you, because you're walking forward, and then the poison spawns on that side of you, but you walk through it essentially as it spawns. So that's something to definitely be mindful of, because it kills you a lot of the time, and that's why I'm a little hesitant to dispel people sometimes, is because they'll be moving to get out of something, and then they'll walk into their own poison. So if you're like dispelling yourself or anything like that, that's definitely something to be aware of. Then the other thing that kills people is breaking yourself out too early of these pools on the floor. And I even talk about how the pools spawn. So the pools spawn by these little blood workers that are constantly walking around the fight. If they get hit by literally anything, they will just die and then drop a pool on the floor. So there I just moonfired that one that's far away, and it drops a pool on the floor. Say I wanted a pool right here, I just kill this one with a moonfire. Also, if the waves hit them, they die. Like, literally anything in the room that touches them, they will die too. And like there, but now we have 3 pools out here. Sometimes the pools do disappear after a certain amount of time, so that is something you want to be mindful of. That's how you get the pools to spawn, if you're like noticing that your group isn't spawning enough of them, or you want one specifically at the end of it, just so that you don't have to worry about stealing somebody else's or anything like that. But yeah, that's generally how that fight works. So use healing cooldowns during the venom, and then or the poison debuff. Spell somebody if you can, and then other than that, be ready to jump in a pool before the cosmic singularity. And that is pretty much it for this dungeon, so I hope this was helpful. I know it was a bit of a ramble. There's just there's not that many mobs in this dungeon, and it's just a lot of different, I guess it's a lot of like the same mobs, but in different orders or different packs and stuff like that, with lots of different kind of moving parts to them. So, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys later.